I secretly filmed my girlfriend and caught her gaslighting me. Did I go too far? I've been with my girlfriend and for 6 years since college, and after she landed a job here in my city back in 2023 we decided to move in together. Knowing break-ins are pretty common, we set up motion-activated cameras, one of which points right at our kitchen to cover the back door, and was fully aware they record whenever there's motion. A while ago, she started accusing me of slacking off on chores. Despite my obsessive cleaning habits, my parents grounded me for a week if I left dishes dirty growing up. At first I shrugged off her remarks, but they got so persistent and harsh that I actually began doubting my own recollection of who was doing which tasks around the house. So I spent hours combing through a year and a half of kitchen cam footage, logging every time she or I did dishes, vacuumed, mopped, or grabbed cleaning supplies to clean up. The tally showed we split chores almost down the middle. I'd washed 20 more loads of dishes, and she had vacuumed or mopped 5 more times than I did. When I laid out the numbers, and blew up, called my actions abusive stalking, and ended our relationship over what she claimed was a gross invasion of her privacy. Now I'm heartbroken, seeing friends side with her and label me controlling, and I'm left questioning whether I was wrong to expose her behavior with those recordings, or if she'd been gaslighting me all along. So, Reddit, did I cross a line by using our home cameras to prove my case, or was defending myself against her false accusations totally justified? Sometimes, the truth hurts more than the lie, especially when it's caught on camera. Now let's go from surveillance to sass. When one nosy mom questions your entire family dynamic, sometimes you've got to shut her down hard. I told a nosy mom to get lost. Wait till you hear the drama. I've got 4 kids in my family now. 3 of them are siblings I adopted last year after my sister-in-law passed, and to them, my husband and I are mom and dad through and through. A few weeks ago, we all headed to a neighbor's daughter's birthday party, and I spent most of the time chatting with the other parents while the kids ran around. That's when I met Layla for the first time. She looked me up and down and straight up asked, "So, is that your niece? You're not her real mom, right?" I explained gently that, yes, she was my niece by birth but legally adopted as my daughter, and she rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd pop out. Layla then had the nerve to lecture me in front of her own daughter, insisting, "You're her aunt, not her mom. You're confusing the little girl." I tried to keep it civil, but when she kept pushing and lecturing my kids on what to call me, I snapped. Before I knew it, I'd blurted out, "You know what? Mind your own business and leave us be," and told her to get lost right there in front of her stunned little girl. My husband later said I overreacted, but I felt like I was defending our family's bond. Now I'm left wondering, was I out of line for putting Layla in her place, or did I do the right thing by standing up for my kids? Standing up for your family isn't always pretty, but respect starts with boundaries. Next up, a school competition, a biased judge, and one student who wasn't afraid to call out the corruption right in the middle of their big moment. You won't believe how I exposed a rigged scholarship judge. I'm a high school senior, and we had this big scholarship competition just before winter break. Community volunteers came in as judges to pick the best presentations. One of the judges happened to be a school board member and, halfway through, she kept fawning over her daughter's best friend's presentation, even though it was plastered with copied material I'd seen her pull up in the computer lab days earlier. It was awkward watching her gush over that one project while everyone else waited their turn, so when it kicked off into my slot, I decided to call it out directly. I walked up and said, "Look, we all saw you glued to your phone and ignoring anyone who wasn't your family's favorite. Can we cut the act and just go home?" The room went dead silent, and she marched off to whisper with my teacher, who promptly sent me to the principal's office. Not surprisingly, the judge's pick still won, but I felt a weird sense of triumph simply for speaking up instead of playing along. Afterwards, my classmates told me I'd nailed it. We all saw the bias, and no one else dared say a word. The principal lectured me about taking college applications seriously, and I bluntly replied that I wasn't planning on college anyway since I'm already staring down debt and need to work this spring. I ended up with detention, but here's the twist: the girl who accepted the scholarship turned it down and gave the money to the student with the top grades. I can't help but think my rant shamed the judge into owning up. So, did I go too far by skipping my own presentation to expose that rigged judging? Not a chance. Standing up for fairness was worth the detention. Sometimes, fairness comes at a cost, but calling out injustice is always worth the risk. Now from academic drama to relationship fallout. Imagine proposing, getting rejected, then waking up to find your name smeared all over Facebook. Brutal. I proposed and she said no, then I got exposed? Am I the bad? I was in a relationship with my girlfriend for 6 years before I decided it was time to pop the question. To my shock, she turned me down when I asked her to marry me. The following morning, we sat down to talk things through. During that conversation, she revealed she was actually gay and had never been attracted to men the way I'd hoped. We ended up breaking things off right then and there. Less than 24 hours later, my phone exploded with messages from friends. They were forwarding me a link to a Facebook post about our breakup. Apparently, someone had gone public online claiming I cheated on her. I couldn't believe anyone would use Facebook to drag my name through the mud like that. In her post, she insisted that infidelity was the reason we split up. Normally, I'm not one to hold grudges, but finding out felt like a gut punch. It seemed like she was intentionally wrecking my reputation for reasons I still can't fathom. In a moment of frustration, I commented publicly that the real reason we split was because she came out as gay. Most people thought I was bluffing until she angrily confirmed it right then and there. And just to clear the air, I never cheated on her. Sure, I did sleep with someone else the day we broke up, but it was only after we had already ended things. So, am I the bad? Love doesn't always end in yes, and sometimes, the fallout is louder than the question itself. Now it's a different kind of ask, one involving family, fertility, and a favor that absolutely blew up the dinner table. I asked my sister-in-law to be our surrogate. Her explosive reaction shocks everyone. I've been married for years, and my wife and I have been trying to have a baby ever since, but no matter what we tried, it just wasn't happening. It took us a long while to accept that biological parenthood probably wasn't in the cards, but eventually we came to terms with it together. Our whole family has watched us go through every test, treatment, and heartbreak along the way, so they know how much it means to us. With that in mind, my wife and I decided to approach her sister, Violet, with a pretty big favor. Would she carry our child for us? Violet's firmly single and has said for years she never wants kids of her own, so we knew it was a long shot. Still, we figured that since a surrogate doesn't raise the baby, she might be willing to help us out without taking on parenting duties. My wife is super close to her family, and the idea of keeping everything in the bloodline was really important to her. Given that bond, we honestly didn't think it was unreasonable to ask, so we invited Violet over for dinner and laid it all out. We explained that we'd saved up plenty of money, and we'd pay her the going rate for a surrogate so she could take time off if she needed it. We even made it clear there was no pressure to raise the child afterward, just a temporary pregnancy. We told her how much we'd appreciate it and asked her to think it over with an open mind. That's when Violet completely lost it. She called us selfish maniacs for even suggesting it and accused us of disrespecting her wishes. She stormed out of the house mid-conversation, furious, and hasn't answered our calls since. She even went to our in-laws and got them to tell us not to contact her until she's ready to talk first. My wife's parents feel badly for us but say we should have known how Violet would react given her feelings about kids. My own parents think Violet overreacted, but a few friends whisper that it was a pretty rude ask from the start. Now I can't stop thinking about it. I never expected Violet to blow up like that. She's blocked us on every social app, and it's making me wonder, are we really the bad guys for asking her to be our surrogate? When family expectations meet personal boundaries, things can get real messy real fast. Let's shift gears to something a little more public. A packed train, a selfish stranger, and one clapback that had the whole car watching. I shamed my teacher on a packed train. You decide who's wrong. I'm standing on a sweltering, overcrowded train car, dead tired and hunting for any empty seat. At first, every spot is claimed, but then I notice an elderly woman rising and heading toward the doors. I make my move toward the newly vacated seat only to find a purse sitting there instead, clearly belonging to the young woman by the window. I politely ask her if she wouldn't mind moving her bag so I can sit down, but she ignores me. Seeing her headphones in, I figure it's easier to just pick up the purse and hand it to her as I settle in. The moment I touch the purse, she shoots me the most disgusted look and blurts out, "What on earth do you think you're doing?" I explain the situation, and she has the nerve to claim she's saving the seat for a friend. I point out that she's clearly alone. I literally just watched that old lady get up, yet she stays silent. So I begin to sit down anyway, forcing her to grab her purse before it gets squashed under me. That only sparks an even louder tirade. "What's your problem?" she demands. Spotting another elderly passenger searching for a seat, I decide I'm done with this petty drama. I turn back to the woman, who's a bit on the heavier side, lock eyes with her, and say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you actually needed 2 seats to fit. My mistake, I'll move." I stand up and offer my spot to the older woman, who gratefully accepts it with a warm smile, completely unfazed by the storm of complaints coming from the young woman as I walked away. Some commuters shoot me dirty looks, but a few are quietly snickering, making me wonder if I overstepped. In the end, I'm convinced I'm not the bad here, 0 out of 5 bads. Leaving a purse on a seat you're not using, while staring out the window with headphones on, is just entitled. She earns 2 out of 5 bads for that selfish move. When someone tries to claim more than their share, sometimes the best response is bold and loud. Now we're 30,000 feet up, and one tired traveler has to decide: give up his comfort for strangers, or hold his ground and face the side eyes. I snubbed strangers on a plane and they can't believe why. Did I act like a total jerk by refusing to give up my seat so a brother and sister could sit together? I'd already been traveling all day, hopping between 2 flights. One lasted 8 hours, the other stretched to 10, with just a brisk 100-minute layover. My plan was to touch down at 6:20 a.m. in time for a 9 a.m. job interview at work, so catching even a few winks was mission critical. After a nightmare of a first flight where sleep was basically non-existent, I was dreading the next leg. When I boarded, I saw I had an empty middle seat next to an older gentleman, and at my tall frame, that extra space was a godsend for stretching out and dozing off. Just as I was settling in, a flight attendant approached and asked if I'd be willing to give up my prime spot so a pair of siblings could sit side by side. She mentioned the kids were young, though she wasn't sure of their exact ages. I inquired where I'd be moved and she smiled. "Follow me, I'll show you everything." I paused to weigh my options and realized any alternate seat would be far less comfortable than what I already had. Had it been a different day, I would have happily stood up for those kids, but right then, I desperately needed rest. So I simply told her, "I'm really sorry, but I'll have to stay put here." She looked taken aback and replied, "But they're children, and on such a long flight, please come with me." I apologized again and reiterated, "I get it, but I need to keep this seat." She sighed heavily, rolled her eyes, and I just let myself drift off, too exhausted to argue further. When I woke a few hours later, the fellow next to me joked that he hoped my extra shut-eye was worth delaying those kids' comfort, so I told him he was welcome to trade seats, and he quietly let it go. In the end, was I really in the wrong for holding on to my only chance at sleep? Now we're headed into a more personal confession, one woman's past, her secret, and the impossible choice between honesty and happily ever after. My fiancé has no clue I used to be an escort. You won't believe why. I just got engaged to an incredible guy after 2 years together, and while I'm over the moon about our future, there's a secret I've kept under wraps that makes me wonder if I crossed a line by not telling him sooner. 3 years ago, before he ever came into my life, I spent about 4 months working as an escort. No dramatic horror stories or trauma, just a job with its ups and downs that I chose to leave once it stopped feeling right for me. Unlike those tales of needing rescue or rehab, my exit was simple. I decided I'd had enough, walked away, and transitioned into a more conventional career without looking back. Since then, I've stayed on top of my health with regular testing, carry 0 emotional baggage from that chapter, and figured it's none of anyone else's business now that I've moved on. When he casually asked how many partners I'd had, I admitted I'd been prolific in the past without spelling out exactly what I did for a few months. I thought that was honest enough. Deep down, though, I worry that revealing the escort gig might shatter the amazing trust and love we've built, or even jeopardize his vision of me as the future mother of his kids. At the same time, I'm growing tired of living with this secret hanging over our relationship and dread the day I have to keep it forever. So tell me, was I out of line for holding this back, or can keeping my past private ever be justified? Some secrets come from the past, but what really matters is the life you're building now. From relationship pressure to family freeloaders, next up, a coder turned babysitter who just wanted to be paid fairly, but sparked a holiday war instead. They haggled me down to $35 per hour babysitting 3 kids. Was I the bad guy? I'm a 25-year-old coder who picked up freelance projects on the side, and over Christmas break I found myself sticking around my parents' rural hometown, where my cousin and her husband were visiting with their 3 little ones. I'd been planning to catch up on work at the library each morning, but they asked if I could watch the kids for the day so they could have some child-free time. I explained that if I paused my coding, I'd lose billable hours, and reminded them my typical rate for freelance gigs is $60 an hour, while my salary job works out to about $40 an hour. Babysitting 3 energetic children, I warned, would be tougher than my usual tasks. They countered that babysitters usually charge around $15 per hour. Feeling that was unfair to both my schedule and skill set, I offered a compromise of $35 an hour, well below my standard rate but still reflecting the extra effort of looking after 3 kids. My cousin flipped out, accusing me of being selfish, entitled, and trying to exploit their lack of options. Her husband piled on, mocking me for being a stupid kid who didn't understand local babysitting norms, insisting I'd learn the hard way once I became a parent myself. Tired of being belittled, I simply told them to find someone else if my rate wasn't acceptable. My mom later said I'd been unreasonable, and my cousin's crew agreed. Now I'm left wondering, did I really overcharge, or was standing up for my time and boundaries the right call? When people don't respect your time, it's not about money, it's about dignity. Next, a photo, 2 wannabe celebs, and a friendship that went up in digital flames. I posted my actor friend's pic, they freaked out. Recently, I asked, am I the bad guy for telling my friends they're not actually famous? My friends are a couple who've each snagged tiny TV roles, literal 2-line cameos at most. I'm not hating on them, I really want them to succeed. But to be clear, neither of them has a real fan base in person or online. Combined, they have fewer than 1,500 followers. Last week, I shared a group photo on Instagram from a buddy's birthday celebration. Everyone in the shot had their arms draped around one another, totally innocent and platonic. Yesterday, the 2 of them messaged me together in our chat and asked me to delete the picture because they don't want people knowing they're dating. I'd consider removing it if they looked terrible, sloppy, drunk, or something, but they looked fine, just embracing like friends. When I pressed for why, they said they feared ending up in gossip sites. I bluntly reminded them they're not famous, they don't even have working IMDb pages. That set them off, they called me every name in the book, demanded I take it down, and even sent screenshots of them reporting my post. So far, nothing's been removed. I'm honestly ready to drop them as friends. But on principle, I don't want to delete the photo just because they overreacted. Edit, okay, after reading everyone's comments, I see where you're coming from. I can separate my annoyance at their over-the-top, delusional reasoning from the simple fact that no one should be stuck with an online photo they don't want out there. I'll take it down. Sometimes people think they're more important than they are, but reality always finds a way to humble them. And speaking of humble pie, this next one involves a rude customer, a foreign language, and one barista who understood everything. I spoke Dutch to a rude customer, you won't believe his reaction. I'm tied to the Starbucks grind, pulling barista shifts all week. Normally, I get along with most customers, starting up conversation when it feels right but also sensing when people just want to breeze through. So the other day, I was behind the register, ringing up orders as they came in. 2 older gentlemen stepped up to place their orders. One of them bluntly said, "Coffee, black." I politely asked which size cup he wanted and whether he preferred a blonde, medium, or dark roast. Instead of replying, he turned to his friend and muttered something in Dutch, then snapped back, "Coffee, black." His remark roughly meant, well, this isn't exactly the brightest person behind the counter, is she? Basically, he was mocking my intelligence. After that jab, he finally told me he wanted a medium dark roast. I nodded and then switched to Dutch, running through the usual follow-up questions to finish his order. "Anything else I can grab for you today, a pastry or another drink? What name should I put on your cup? And do you have a Starbucks rewards card?" I stayed friendly and kept smiling, handling the rest of the transaction entirely in Dutch. He answered back in English, looking like he'd just seen a ghost. His friend seemed uneasy at first, then burst out laughing as they walked away. I realized it might not be the best look for someone in customer service. When a coworker asked what had happened and I filled her in, she was pretty baffled by my response. I don't think it was a bad move, since I stayed polite the whole time, but I also made it clear I'd caught every insult he lobbed. Then again, maybe I should have held back, given the position I'm in. So, in true aita style, am I the bad here? Some customers learn the hard way: don't assume you're the smartest person in the room. Now let's talk weddings, color schemes, and one epic hair-based standoff that nearly tore a family apart. Bridesmaid Showdown. I refused to dye my hair for my cousin's Peacock-themed wedding. I'm a 25-year-old guy, and my cousin Ella is going to stand up for me at my June wedding, which has a strict blue and green peacock theme. Guests were told to stick to those hues in their outfits, and apparently, that extends to hair, too. Ella's got natural, waist-length ginger locks that she's spent years growing, and when I gently suggested she try a temporary blue-green dye just for the day, she flat-out refused. Next, I offered the idea of a wig, just 24 hours in something that wouldn't clash with the decor, but Ella said she'd feel awkward wearing one, especially with hair down past her waist, and didn't want to risk anything feeling off in photos. From my end, I tried to stay cool. After all, it's only one day, but inside I was panicking over ruined group shots and a mismatched color scheme. I hate confrontation, but when there was no middle ground, dye, wig, or don't come, I had to draw the line. I respect Ella's right to rock her natural hair, but I also need my wedding photos to look cohesive. So I told her I understood her side, but if she wasn't on board with the plan I laid out, I'd rather have her skip the ceremony than force her into something she hated. It stung to say it, and now our whole family is in an uproar, but at least I know where I stand. When the look matters more than the love, maybe it's time to rethink the guest list. Finally, we wrap up at the dinner table, where one guest's quiet tears sparked a loud conversation about inclusion, effort, and vegan lasagna. She broke down over my dinner menu. Did I go too far? I've been hosting dinner at our place for years, and just last week I noticed Sarah sitting almost silent, her eyes welling up as if she might burst into tears. My wife gently asked what was wrong, but Sarah insisted everything was fine and brushed off the question, so we didn't press her. After we cleared the plates, James pulled us aside and confessed that Sarah felt hurt because none of the dishes we served matched her vegan diet. It felt intentional, like we were leaving her out of our gatherings. He went on to say he thought we were being thoughtless and rude for not including at least one vegan option, which honestly caught me off guard and left me pretty frustrated. My wife was mortified and immediately apologized to Sarah and James, but I couldn't shake the feeling that none of us had actually done anything wrong. I really like Sarah, and I respect her dietary choices, but expecting us to overhaul our entire multi-course meals or cook a separate vegan feast for one guest feels unreasonable, given how much time and effort goes into planning these dinners. To be clear, everyone else at our table has no special dietary needs, and we've always asked guests to let us know in advance if they can't eat something. I'm left wondering, was I out of line for standing my ground, or did I genuinely overlook Sarah's feelings?